We're joined by Reuben Kigame. Reuben,
Hey,
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
You know, it's been a while, but
It's been a minute, as they say.
as they say, it's been a minute. Karibu sana to
Nice to see you guys. I'm still complaining that you sound too fresh for Nairobi.
Hey? So, and this sort of freshness, where do you witness it?
In Eldoret.
In Eldoret.
Of course. But we say. No, you guys sound as good as ever. I listen to you every so often.
Asante sana.
Yeah. Interesting issues.
When did you come to Nairobi?
Does
From
anybody-
Eldoret.
Well, recently.
You left your neighbor there. Your neighbor has been there for the Easter holidays.
Oh, who?
William Ruto, the president.
Jirani yangu.
Jirani yako.
Wacha atawale wakati mimi natawala Nairobi.
He likes your song. Uniachi.
Apparently, yeah.
He
He likes the songs. I don't think he likes me anymore.
Hadi mwisho wa dahari
Oh, you know the song too?
ulisema.
Man.
Of course. It's a very good. What is dahari though?
Dahari is like endless. Mwisho wa dahari would be endless time. So it would be a time syndrome there. Yeah. So end of the age, I think it would be age.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a time factor.
Okay. There are many people who say hadi mwisho wa bahari.
Yeah, hata hapo atakuwa tu. Hata mwisho wa bahari, hata kuacha huko.
It's the geographical landscape you're accustomed to.
Mwisho wa
That
bahari.
is part of the
you can see.
conversation. Wajua bwana, huwezi kwenda jangwani ukasema mwisho wa bahari, kwa sababu hawana bahari.
Hawajui bahari.
Utasema mwisho wa jangwa.
Mwisho wa jangwa.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Reuben, CT has the day's proverb. This week, the proverbs will be from Mali.
Country of Mali.
The desert country that is very landlocked. Huh?
It's extremely landlocked, and 65% of that country is desert.
Wow, yeah.
And the bulk of their population, again by a simpler percentage, is youth. A deaf man may not have heard thunder, but will surely see the rain.
A deaf man may not have heard thunder, but will surely see the rain.
You may not see the enactment of something, but the consequences you'll always see. Is that what it
Absolutely
is?
true. Absolutely true. And here,
You can't miss the consequences.
no consequences. Upende usipende.
Tabidi.
They'll come knocking.
Wow. And you said 65% youth?
Yep. Actually, to be precise, 67. Not even 5.
67%.
So, of course, natural calamities, the disasters, the desert factor,
No, theirs is mostly
The
war.
wars.
war, yeah.
The wars that have been fought in that country are many.
But it means they're also giving birth to a lot of children.
Yes, they are.
Islam?
And some of their, yes, they are Muslims, which
okay.
means that you are permitted by law to have
Yes,
up
to have four wives, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good religion, that.
And there's a point. We can talk religion all we want, but that will certainly give you a lot of children. I have a friend in Columbus that comes to Kenya every summer, every June, July. He's my official barber there. And he says, mimi nakuja Kenya kuzalisha. That's all he does. Raha, ona wazazi, get some children,
Go back.
with 3 or 4. Yeah, go back.
All right.
What is he trying to start? A new clan? Or a new tribe?
Well, does it matter? That's how population comes up.
Ni kazi bana.
Ni kazi, ni job. Ako job.
The two of you need to define.
Ako dini.
Dini,
Yeah, ako dini. Yeah.
Reuben, state of the nation. There's a lot that's happened.
Yeah.
Even after the elections into this new administration, 8 months down the road, the state of the economy, we can now see the national government is having problems
Yeah.
with paying staff at the national government.
Oh, it's terrible.
The country has not sent money to counties for the last 4 months. So county governments have not been able to pay salaries.
Yeah.
For
So that's
months.
only one part of the story. The next one would be whether we'll be able to pay debts. Because a chunk of what we collect actually goes to debt settlement. We are left with very little to spend. So maybe about 60 to 70% is disappearing to debt. The question is, are we on schedule with debts? So we are seeing the repercussions of that now, but sooner or later somebody will come knocking.
So what the government is saying is that one of the reasons why there were delays in payment of salaries this time is because the money that they had, they first wanted to make sure that we don't default on loans that were due. So far, no default. But then that balancing act comes in. You would have wanted to be president.
Yes.
Had the entire process gone through, had Chebukati allowed you to be on the ballot, had the people of Kenya voted for you, you would have been president. You would be the man who would be looking at now.
Yes.
8 months down the road and asking, where Reuben?
And City put it very well the last time I was here. And that is, it's a very difficult position. It's not one you desire to go into, especially if you live in Kenya, and imagine that you'd go scot-free. Everybody will be on you. Now, I wanted to be president because I believe the kind of challenges we are dealing with are known. Everybody knows the challenges, but we are approaching them the wrong way. Let me give you two scenarios so that we stay focused to the end of the program.
Okay.
It's about two analogies. You can run this country either as a family or you could run it as a company. Brigadi would like us to run it as a company of shareholders. But Kenya is really a family with its unique problems. Now, how do you solve family problems? Quite differently from how you solve company problems. If you marry, or whether you marry a divorced person or you marry for the first time, you take up responsibilities. If you take on a company, you run according to rules. They are given rules and so on. And, the principles of running a company, principles of running a family, different. Now, how do you run a family? Because Kenya, I believe, is a family. You run it as a parent. You look at who is with you, how many children you have. You look at the needs you have, where you live, what kind of house, what kind of food. And you decide, this house is too expensive for me to live in. I'll go into a cheaper house. We're eating 3 meals a day. Wacha tukule moja na nusu or one. So that you manage, you live within your means. Now, responsibility there. In a company setting, you are hired to fulfill certain tasks. So let me drive the family narrative, because I think that is what is lacking in Kenya. Every time we have a family problem, we hire somebody to run the family. And that is not going well. So the problem is, we know the issues in Kenya. We know we are hungry. We know it's too expensive to live where we live. We know that somehow the banks will come knocking because we took loans. But instead of dealing with those the family way, we keep borrowing, we go out, So that analogy itself, I hope stays with you, because it will answer a lot of why I would want to be president. The second analogy is that of an MRI. If your body is not running fine, you take an MRI, you check into your system. And so if we took an MRI of the country called Kenya, and we recognize that all the organs are malfunctioning, education is malfunctioning, the economy is malfunctioning, anything you touch is actually agriculture, what? So if you noticed all your organs were failing, how do you live? Do you start making foreign trips? Do you spend everything you have? How do you respond to an MRI that says multiple organ failure? You stop everything, resuscitate. That is the problem we have as a country economically. So that if I was to sit down with Ruto today, I'd say, good man, my friend, we graduated the same year. I'm 8 months older than him. I would say, buddy, good intentions, good energy, but you're going to sink the boat. Because you can see exactly what the problems are, but you're going it the wrong way.
How is he going it the wrong way? If I look at those two examples, how is he running the family and how is he running the organs that are failing?
So let's take the example of that we have no money.
Okay.
So, and that Rigathi says we didn't inherit anything, which are lies, but, and everyone says we have no money. So how do you handle the we have no money problem? You ensure there is money.
How?
So we'll check our priority list and decide, okay, if we spend this, we can survive. If we spend this, then we may not survive. So let's take the example of trips. Ruto and his team are making endless trips. Let's just take his own entourage, for example,
Okay.
to visit an African country. It will cost you a minimum of 100 million or thereabout. Yes, this is an African country. You're talking about advanced teams going into the place, security staff, and then the joyriders. So, which is also
Are there people who are joyriders?
of course. So that's Africa. Now, if you go outside Africa, say Europe or the US, and he's a darling of the US, of course, you spend more. Yeah, you could double that. So the issue is, if we have a money problem, is it wise to keep making all these trips, or is there another way to do those trips? Is there another, could he Zoom, have an online meeting, make a telephone call, or invite these investors to come here instead of, So that's one thing. The other thing is...
Wait, let's go with that one.
No.
Right? Because we'll go through them step by step.
Okay.
Because one, and you have raised it as a main issue here, is that the president's trips
are expensive.
In
fact, in most cases,
are not
unnecessary.
There
So
you go. And unnecessary.
They spend what we're earning, okay?
Why would you say they're unnecessary? We can say, okay, they're expensive, all right. Why would you say they're unnecessary?
I would say, if your problem is simply survival and it's cash flow, you don't then deplete your cash flow on things you could do different. Let me paint the picture so that you have, put the trips on the side burner. Let's take the issue of how you form your government, because he's taking with this hand and removing with the other one.
How exactly?
So, for example, there are lots of sackings. There are a lot of people losing their jobs. In fact, if you read in these tweets last week, he was saying one way to solve this problem is probably to, retrench.
Let me ask you, are we discussing government policy on tweets?
No. I'm just giving you an example. He's economic advisor anyway. So
that's an economic advisor's tweet. So we should take it seriously.
All right. So let me back up.
If we don't, then
So let's say that we have a problem because of cash flow. We should retrench instead of, But he's busy hiring all these CSS with a lot of budgetary implications. And, the joyriding principle of Kenyans, you're hired and the first thing you think about is a car. So it's all luxury budgets. So you have, he's hiring all these unnecessary CSS, 50 instead of the 23, creating unnecessary offices, like those of spouses of his workers. And so you are actually going to spend, every office has a budget implication. So the question is that necessary? You see, we've done without them before. So what behooves anyone that this is a significant, administrative decision. If I was, of course, in office, I would never do anything like that. Instead, in fact, what I would be trying to do is reduce the number of ministries, for example. CT may relate to this. The education docket, for example, has been so split. So it used to be growing up education, science, and technology. So there are, I'm just giving that as an example, that there are departments that can run together. And all you do is administrative control. So reduce the number of ministries, reduce the number of government workers, and instead take a lot more time to invest in production, so that instead of spending, you're actually producing. If, for example, in the family model, you took a loan and you used it to go for a trip, entertainment, and so on, you'd soon find that your same problems knocking. So you take a loan to invest so that it produces and gets you out of trouble. And instead, what Kenya has done is, for example, inherit projects. You just keep tagging at those projects. You start new ones, and you keep borrowing, and you keep spending. So the little that is coming in is not budgeted for, is not organized, and you, at the same time, you're not analyzing where you're going. Ruto, who was the deputy president before, knows a lot about government, a lot about what went wrong or what went right in the previous government. He was number 2 anyway. So I would expect that the first thing he would do is stop the train, plan maybe to go a different direction. Instead, he continues the same things that Uhuru was doing and introduces new ones, all at the same time, and expects...
What new things has he introduced?
Let's just talk about, say, the Hustler Fund. Okay? What is that?
It's a Hustler Fund.
Yeah. And
it's an initial 15 billion shilling being lent to people who are not financially included. It's a financial inclusion fund for people who don't have access to credit, for small traders and business people.
The simple thing is that's expenditure right there. Expenditure, and by the way...
It's 15 billion shillings being lent to people. They are repaying.
Ni madeni. And we are not short of the madeni principle here, from Fuliza to... So actually what we should be doing is control that by injecting money into where the people are, into livelihoods and so on, so that instead of...
But Reuben, is that not what we've been told the Hustler Fund is supposed to do? The very thing you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Is it doing it?
I mean, when was it started?
It's injecting money into those...
December.
Into that money is being dished out, we've seen.
Dished, yes.
Yes.
It's not being invested.
How do we know? Because it's individuals who are getting the money.
So let's not get sidetracked here. The issue is, that's one of the...
We're not getting sidetracked.
Yeah, we are, because...
You're saying many things, and we've got to halt you at some point so that you can explain.
All right.
So here was an issue where you said that instead of Ruto taking a break, stopping the train, he is continuing and in fact adding more loads onto this train.
Yes.
And the question was, what extra loads has Ruto added?
I only gave the Hustler Fund as one.
One example. Another example?
The issue of privatization. That is a monster in and of itself. And then you have the expansion of government. So all these things are happening at the same time. And the point I wanted to make is that the best way to go about our challenges now, and my advice to him would have been, stop, get experts into place to diagnose exactly what our problem is, and diagnose the way a doctor does. Kichwa kinauma wapi, ni tumbo ama ni wapi, so that you concentrate on where the real problem is. And I think Zimbabwe did something like that. And in issues such as food security, for example, Zimbabwe is actually beginning to get it right, where you ask how many, how many people live in this country? How many are hungry? How much do we eat in a year? Therefore, how much do we inject into the food sector? So if I was in Ruto's shoes, and you're faced with everyone telling you bring down the cost of living, make sure that everyone can afford food and so on. What I would do is concentrate on that as a solution, give a solution to that, and then, ask what else is ailing us. What we're having here is like a runaway situation. For example, he comes in and puts up a task force for education. Ever had a report from that group?
Yes.
It's still going on, yeah.
It's still going on.
But they've been mentioned as
There
to
was
what
a preliminary report.
Yes.
Preliminary report. But, if you didn't stop the train, then you have to you would have to deal with the arising issues of the movement. So, for example, we already have the junior high intake. Some kids are still at home and so on.
So, Reuben, if I hear you correctly, you're saying there are many problems.
And we know them. It's about prioritization.
You see, where we are coming from is
Yes,
this.
yes.
We have come to understand that when you are looking at a problem and it is not you who has the burden of providing a solution, it is easy to pontificate on the possible solutions. Because there may be things that someone gets into government and they now are faced with, which they can't really talk about. I'm not talking about what the Deputy President keeps mentioning about finding empty coffers. That I will not talk about. There is no such thing as empty coffers in a government unless the entire taxation process is halted, so there's no money coming in. Then you can talk about empty coffers. But so long as people are paying taxes on a daily basis, there is never a situation where we have empty coffers.
Correct.
It's not possible. What I'm saying is, this government came in with an idea of what they wanted to do.
True.
We are seeing what they're
Well,
doing.
I need to take that back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You don't want to say true.
debatable
according to you.
It's
Yes.
debatable.
Okay.
Yes, they came with an idea of what they wanted to do. Now, if we were to take what they tell us at face value, it would be they are trying to implement what they felt ought to be done to remedy the problems that we have. Okay? Now, do we see signs of any of these problems, which we all agree are many? Do we see any of these problems being remedied? Or do we see the solutions that this government has proposed to solve some of the problems that we have? Do we see any of them working? Do we see any of them giving us hope that, yes, what we have seen started here may bring the solution that we desired?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes and no.
I want us to take a break and then you can come and respond to that question. And you can think of specific solutions that have been proposed by the administration that you take issue with. Okay? And say, for example, they are saying that this is how they want to address the cost of living. And I have an issue with it because of this and the other. Or this is how they said they want to address the, budget and the high levels of borrowing. This is their solution. This is my problem with their solution. 28 minutes to 9. Reuben Kigame is here with us in the studio. He wanted to be president last year until he was stopped by Chebukati on one or two issues. He went to court. It's just we know. So he's here. He's telling us what he thinks of the government currently. Is the Ruto administration on track? Does it have its handle on things? That's the question that we are asking Reuben. That's what we want to hear from him.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Conversation continues with Reuben Kigame. So, Reuben, some of the proposals and programs that have been rolled out by the Kenya Kwanza administration that you take issue with?
Yeah, so let's first agree that anytime you look at Kenya's problems, there are many. So we all know there are many, many problems, and nobody can pretend to be able to solve all of them.
Yeah.
So that we need to agree.
Yeah.
But we also need to agree that the problems we have are systemic. We've inherited value systems. We've inherited ways of doing things, business or whatever, that maybe we need to check so that, for example, we reprioritize values to the point where trust is restored and so on. So that is where we need to spend a lot of our energy. Now, I will highlight maybe 4 main issues about this particular government that I would do different.
Okay.
And the first one I will pass over very quickly because I don't think it warrants our discussion. I would do religion differently. Secondly, I would really emphasize national sovereignty.
What does that mean?
I would do less government with the foreign, the global agenda. I would concentrate a lot more at home in terms of making Kenya work for the people, and that by respecting our own identity as a people. I would want us to focus on the Kenyan person more. But the most important thing...
What does that mean?
National identity. You see, there's so much... right now, the way Kenya is structured is really a battleground for foreign powers. Kibaki leaned a lot towards China, and so did Uhuru. Ruto is leaning a lot more towards the United States, let's say the Western world, and they have a big stake on how we do government here. Now, let me. The third thing for me is
what's wrong with that?
If you talk to the neighbor too much and not to your wife and children, you may end up having a problem. Let's put that last. Let me put the front burner issue here.
Okay, then
how you form government. The way Ruto has formed government is wrong. And the fourth thing I would want to highlight is how to deal with food insecurity, because that is the monster on the table right now. Now, let me do number 3 first, how you form government. What Ruto and his team have done is look at who is my friend, who are my cronies, who are the people that can make it easy for me to do government, and then bring them into government. Now, who is advantageous to me in terms of staying in power? You bring them on board. Now, the problem with that is that you throw away professionalism and the real solution to the problems of Kenya. So you end up with crony capitalism, where you reward a few friends. And, the whole issue, for example, with the CSS, is reminiscent of that, whereby people maybe who did not qualify to make it into government and so on end up actually in government, and this is a betrayal even to the people that rejected them. For example,
you mean CASs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you expand government because you want to accommodate your friends and acquaintances and so on business partners and so on, you end up running adrift. So the way I would do this, the way I would do government is ask, what does this ministry need? Who is the best person that we have in this country that can actually do this job? If I find that, for example, Siti Muga is the best qualified person, it doesn't matter to me the political leaning or what Siti Muga looks like, because the job that needs to be done is this one, and Siti is the best person to do it. I want him in.
Reuben, and here I was thinking that just because I'm your friend, I'd get a job when you're president.
Oh, you would not, Siti. You might drive me around, but
this friendship not very.
I know. So if you look at, for example, how even the predecessor of Ruto did it. He had his challenges, but he would look at, okay, I need someone really good at DCI. So he goes for someone like Kinoti. What is the experience Kinoti brings to the table, for example? Now, if you go and say, City, you're my friend, come and handle DCI for me. I'll reward the friendship, but I'll not be solving the country's problems. So I would do government appointments totally different. I would make it more inclusive. If you look at how Ruto has done it, it's really dominated by two communities. So he increases the problem he says he would solve. And that is betrays national unity. And where you have a Kikuyu in this particular docket, the assistant or PS is a Kalenjin. And that the media has highlighted. We all know that's the wrong way to do government.
What is the right way? I mean, the theory about the right way we hear.
There's no theory. But it's really that they are qualified people across the country.
You know, Reuben, we've had many experiments with this qualified people.
Oh,
Yes, we have. There was a time in the Moi era, we had a whole slew of PSs who came from the private sector, and they were experts. Some had worked for the World Bank. They were brought in. We've experimented with this for some time. The question I'm actually asking... For some
time?
For a long time, actually.
Okay.
The question I'm asking is, in which political system on the planet don't people reward their friends?
The wrong word is reward.
Actually, the right word.
Because government is not about rewards.
Actually, Reuben, it is.
I don't think so.
I'm talking about the practice. I'm not talking about, what do we see in government? Let's say, for instance, what do we see when, say, you have a Nusumkate government as we had in the Kibaki era, and we have now the opposition and the group that won the election are brought together. How did we see the representation? It's a reward with expectations. It's always a reward.
The fact that people reward others when they form governments does not mean that's the right way to do it.
So what is right?
The right way to do government is realize this is not your mother's house. This is a republic.
Yeah.
This is a nation, okay, whereby everybody must feel Kenyan, and that's why I was talking about national sovereignty earlier on.
But I thought that's what the county is supposed to do. To make you feel Kenyan. Because that is run and controlled by your people who speak your language, whom you're related to. Yes.
So devolution is actually one of the best things that came in our constitution. The problem is, and I said it, that if it's systemic, so you have a value system that pillages stuff at the national government, then you will actually be devolving corruption and the pillaging. So the thing is, work on appointments so that, for example, you bring in people of character, and that will inspire confidence and trust, and then operate within separation of powers. Because what happens is that when you come in with the intention to actually do state capture in the name of preserving your leadership or whatever, you are not going to inspire confidence. And for a nation to run, for you to have legitimacy, you need to inspire confidence. And so if you have a scenario where, for example, we know people have been adversely mentioned in terms of their conduct, and the DPP has cases against them. So you bring them into government, and the next thing you do is you drop those cases. You are not inspiring confidence.
You have been working against that.
You're actually delegitimizing yourself.
So if I hear you, Reuben, if you had become president, you would not have run on a campaign of this is a Munyore who is running as president, right?
Oh, no. Well,
you are running on a different platform, on a national platform, but then you had a core support base.
Yes.
And this core support base, we could say, was people of a certain leaning and thinking who were mostly found in the civil service, not in in the civic society. Right? So those are your core. If Reuben Kigame were to ascend to the presidency and then he started forming government, your immediate thinking would be the people that you've interacted with.
So
I'd have expected
Eric,
that, a lot more people from the civil service would have joined than from Vihiga County.
yeah.
So we'll not be accusing you of being tribal in terms of picking Wanyore from Vihiga into government.
So the
But
whole,
we'd be saying
the whole
that
issue,
there are
Eric,
people
is
in public
the whole issue is foundational, whereby even the people that you work with to form government, take civil society, for example. If you do not have policies, if you do not have structures within your campaign team, your manifesto, your agenda, if you do not have principles, then you will be committing exactly the same mistake you are blaming your predecessor for.
Yep.
So what you do is, and this is what political parties in this country are lacking, and that is agenda-based politics, agenda-based leadership. You form parties for convenience, not for leadership. Today you have Azimio here, you have Kenya Kwanza there. You can be sure maybe in the next 5 years, you'll not be hearing of those formations because we have such a fluidish approach to politics. And the main challenge then is we then mainstream politics instead of leadership, so that there is no one time you're concentrating on leadership. You move from one election to another and you're back to politics. In fact, if we did less talking and more, work, if we for example, concentrated less on political rhetoric, then we would achieve more. In fact, so have we accepted the talk and not do culture that every parliamentarian knows that when they go into government, all they're going to do is earn and talk and earn and increase your salary. Now it's catching up with them, that they themselves are not even paid. So they are having to taste. And on the one hand, I'm saying, ata nyinyi onjeni, feel what we feel out here when we go without salaries. So that they know it's important to lead and not politics. The day I will see us move from an election and work before we have another campaign, I would be a very happy person. But the politicians we have know that you have to keep relevant, and so just keep talking.
Now, Reuben, it has been argued that those of us who are being led are responsible for the situation that you've just described, because we never stop these people from talking. We allow them to talk. In fact, we join them in large numbers and we cheer them on. So we, on that, if we're to go with that trajectory of discussion, we are the ones who actually enable these people. We are the ones who guarantee that they'll continue talking to us and solving our problems through talk.
Yes and no. We are not entirely responsible for that. I think it was Frantz Fanon who was saying, if you can just keep people talking.
You're talking about the wretched of the earth, yeah?
So you could always dominate them. Just keep talking and even fund more talking. And if there is one thing that social media has done, it's actually to keep you talking. How many WhatsApp groups are you in? How many Facebook posts do you see? It's just, this is what is wrong. Yeah, I also, last year, yesterday, it's it's just talk.
No. Talk is
so there
good.
Is therapy.
You know why talk is good? Yes.
There is therapy.
Talk is good.
No. Well, talk is good, but you can't talk 24 hours. You've got to work and eat.
So we are not categorizing talk.
So the point is this, that if I know I can continue to dominate you by making you to talk, then the one who pulls the shots, who calls the shots, is no longer the people you're blaming. It's actually the people who are making you to talk.
Actually, I'm not blaming them. I'm merely
you're saying that we are responsible.
Yes, that
so you apportion blame.
No.
Yeah.
It isn't apportioning blame. It's stating a fact. You see, blame is as though I'm running away from the problem and looking for someone to lay the on whose head I wish to lay the problem. I'm stating the fact.
So
the fact isn't blame.
Let's settle this and then talk about food security. Yes. The issue is, let's talk less and work.
Actually, I'm thinking we should talk more.
I don't think so.
Who should talk less? Those in
City.
government or all of us?
City.
It is. I mean, when I say talk more, I said it's not just talk per se, but talk as in constructive and determining what
that
it is
that
we are
I
talking
agree.
about.
So that
Yes.
would be constructive national dialogue. That
Contributing
we
towards
need.
something.
We need to have a national dialogue on what our problems are. You know, the way the Ufungamano Initiative or NCAC, those are constructive. But any new WhatsApp group, any social media chat is just going to lead. We'll be talking the next 5 years. Now,
Food security.
Food security. If I was in Ruto's shoes, and I come from a government that has just had subsidies to ensure that somehow people survive, the first thing I would ask myself is, if I pulled away those subsidies, what is going to be the immediate consequence? How will it affect the people? How will it affect my leadership as a president? I think it's one of the mistakes that he made to lift off or do away with subsidies. We needed subsidies to basically cushion. And what cushioning would have done for him would be give him time to then roll out what I consider one of the best things he has. And that is the middle term and the long term solution to the country's food situation. But he's rolling that out, and people are saying,
In the absence of
we
current
can't feel you.
interventions.
Iko sawa, mipango ni sawa, lakini tuko njaa. So what I would have done different is maybe continued with subsidies for maybe 3 to 6 months, balanced against our seasons of food production. So for Nyanza and Western Kenya, you have some production coming up, in the middle of the year. And then in the North Rift, end of the year, from September to December, you have another influx of food production. So I would have rolled out the subsidies maybe to around June, so that we cushion the prices.
What kind of subsidies would you have done? Remember, there was just the one maize subsidy, maize flour subsidy.
And so if we're talking food security, you've got to touch the cost of food, but you've also got to touch the cost of fuel. So for food, because we knew that, he came into office in September, and that was a good time because a bumper harvest was already happening in the North Rift. So that was a good time to mop up the food.
The maize.
Yes. So that you're beginning to import towards maybe February or March, when there is a fall, in the supply, and also predicting that around June, July, you'll be having the Nyanza, Western Kenya harvests. So that gap there is what he would be trying to fill. Instead, he comes bang with importation. And even if it's the right thing to do, what the message that sends to farmers is unaleta chakula wakati sisi tuna harvest. So there was a problem there. Now the second thing, besides the subsidies, that I would do is ensure that the preservation of what we harvest. So for example, we lose between 35 and 45% of what we produce, and that is mainly due to post-harvest challenges, storage, and so on. So I would get my experts to ensure that we lose as little as possible. We preserve what we get, and so the National Cereals and Produce Board would be a place to look for me, and certainly look at that Nyandarua problem, and I think he's attending to it now, where yes, you're producing so much food, but it's not reaching the rest of
getting to the market.
Yeah. So you open up Nyandarua and other areas that are do not have access. The other thing I would do is encourage diversification of our cuisine. Maize has become our staple, but it's actually not our. It's not what
It's not our original
yeah,
staple.
Yeah. So I would say it's good to produce maize. Right now, I know that the average Kenyan would consume maybe 100 kilos of maize per year. So you would say in maize, but we have other crops. We have rice. We have sorghum.
Month, Baba.
Per month.
100 kilos.
Kilos.
Per person.
Per month.
No.
That's too much,
Unakula gunia moja kwa mwaka, wewe. And we are 50 million. So we need about 50 million. We need about 50 million bags. So the issue is, do we have the 50 million? If we don't have, then what is the shortfall? And so how can we get it in? But we also have sorghum. We have cassava. We have sweet potatoes. We have millet. We have warus. What is funny? so we need to diversify. We need to diversify, and that would help us not just occupy Kenyans in production. It would also save us from hunger. The perennial challenges. We know that we have climate change issues coming up and so on. So the drought-resistant crops, for example, would be very, very useful to invest in. It will not be easy because tumezoea ugali, but you do it gradually. You actually empower the nutritionists, you empower the millers, you empower the farmers.
Everybody in that value chain.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would go that way, and then now handle the balance between imports and exports, because that is where we have a problem. Kenya has become like a dumping ground for a lot of foreign
everybody,
goods, even toothpicks.
Every international person.
Yes.
Reuben,
So
1 hour short time.
I know.
Come to
another
an end.
time.
Yeah, another time.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for visiting us. Next time you're around Nairobi, when you're not uko farming, come by and let's talk to the nation.
How about you guys coming over?
That too is an option.
Yeah, karibuni.